Hello and welcome to our presentation of the traditional Danish Christmas dish, Flæskesteg, or in English, roasted pork belly. For this dish, we'll need the pork roast itself, peeled potatoes, glassed potatoes, red cabbage, whole milk, cream, whole peppercorns, bay leaves, flour, sugar, a bit of food coloring, and butter. We'll start by salting the peeled potatoes. A good rule of thumb is to add enough salt so the water tastes like seawater. Once that's done, place the pot on the stove and let the potatoes sit while we move on to preparing the rest of the dish. Next, we're going to prepare the stock that we'll use for our brown sauce. First, sprinkle whole peppercorns into the roasting pan, just enough to lightly cover the bottom, and then add some bay leaves, and don't be shy with them. Finally, toss in a bit of salt. Make sure you've got some boiling water ready. Now place the pork belly upside down in the pan with the skin facing down. Pour in the boiling water until it just covers the skin right up to where the meat begins. Once that is done, slide the pan into a preheated oven and roast it for about 45 minutes at 200 degrees. After 45 minutes, take the pork belly out and place it on a cutting board. Flip it back over so the skin is on top and start cutting along the lines in the skin and the fat underneath. This is what will become your crispy flæskesteg, or pork rinds. The butcher usually marks these lines for you, so all you need to do is cut them a bit deeper. Just be careful not to go too far. If you cut into the meat itself, the juices will escape and your pork could end up dry. According to old tradition, the reason we eat pork belly actually goes all the way back to Viking times, when the Danes still believed in the old gods like Odin, Thor, and Frey. During the dark winter months, people would celebrate Yuletide, a big midwinter feast held around December 21st on the winter solstice. It marks the turning point when the days slowly start getting longer and light returns. At these feasts, the Danes would prepare a horse for Odin, a goat for Thor, and pork for Frey. The meat was blessed and then shared, and since Frey was the god of fertility and prosperity, eating the pork was believed to bring a fruitful and abundant year ahead. Over time, the traditions changed. People stopped eating horse and goat at Christmas, but the pork stayed. Later, during Christian times, duck was added to the holiday table. After cutting the skin, sprinkle a generous layer of salt over it. Then place the pork back in the pan, this time with the skin facing up. Slide the pan back into the oven and let it roast for about 2.5 hours until the skin turns beautifully golden and crispy. When the pork has been in the oven for about 2 hours, with just half an hour left, it's time to start preparing the rest of the dish. First, you boil the peeled potatoes so they're finished at the right time. Then you take your glassed potatoes, remove the lid and pour out the liquid. Then rinse them in fresh water to get rid of the excess brine. Next, spread a clean tea towel on the kitchen counter and place the potatoes on it. Now gently dry them off. It's really important to get them completely dry because we're going to caramelize them. If they're wet, the sugar won't stick properly and the result won't be as good. Once they're dry, keep them wrapped in a towel while you prepare the caramel. Find a cooking pan. It should be wide enough to hold the potatoes without stacking them on top of each other and deep enough to hold the caramel. Cover the bottom of the pan with a generous layer of sugar and let it melt slowly over medium heat. Once the sugar has melted and turned into caramel, add a small spoonful of melted butter and stir gently. Now turn up the heat, not all the way to max, but hot enough to keep the caramel bubbling. Then add your dry potatoes to the pan and start stirring, coating them evenly. According to history, the reason we caramelize potatoes goes back to the 1800s when chestnuts became all the rage in France, and that trend soon made its way to Denmark. But in Denmark, the chestnuts were poisonous and the edible ones had to be imported, which made them pricey. Sugar, on the other hand, was more affordable. So the Danes began caramelizing potatoes instead, to imitate the look and taste of roasted chestnuts. Now, while the potatoes simmer in the caramel, you can prepare the red cabbage by putting it in a saucepan and heat it up. You can, of course, make your own by finely slicing a whole red cabbage and sauteing it with a bit of orange and apple juice. But to keep things simple, we have gone with the pre-made version. By now, your pork roast should be ready. You can test whether it's done by gently pressing a fork against the skin. If it's crispy all the way around, it's perfect and ready to come out of the oven. The skin should be golden and crunchy, and the outer layer of the meat will have turned brown or even very dark brown. That is completely normal. Transfer the roast to a cutting board and let it rest for at least 20 minutes, but no longer than 40. Don't worry, the meat will not turn cold. The resting time allows for the juices to settle back into the meat. If you cut it right away, the juices will run out and your roast will end up dry. Now take a sieve and place it over a pot. Pour the stock from the roasting pan through the sieve and into the pot. This will be the base for our brown sauce. Next, add a bit of white flour to give the sauce some thickness. Brown sauce is known for being rich and fairly thick, though everyone has their own preference. Some like it a bit thinner, while others prefer it so thick it almost stands on its own. We recommend aiming for something in between. Start by adding 1 tablespoon of flour to the pot and let it boil until the sauce firms up, but not too much. If you're unsure, add a little flour at a time and let it cook before adding more. Keep the heat at a gentle boil. This helps remove the raw taste of the flour. Once you've reached your desired thickness, add some butter. Brown sauce is known for being a bit of a calorie bomb, made with plenty of butter, whole milk and cream. The order doesn't really matter, just whisk everything together until it's smooth and has a nice creamy texture. Let the sauce simmer for a little while before deciding whether to add more flour. You don't want to over-thicken it. If you do accidentally add too much, just pour in a bit more milk to balance it out. When the sauce has settled and feels right, add a few drops of brown food coloring. Traditionally, this color came from pan drippings, but over time people began using store-bought coloring instead. Finally, season the sauce with salt and pepper to taste. It should have a thick, creamy texture and a rich, savory flavor. Now take the pork and slice it up. The thickness depends on your guests' preferences. Some might like thinner, single-slice cuts, while others prefer thicker, double-slice pieces. Just follow the lines in the crackling as your guide. You'll know if you've succeeded in keeping the juices inside the meat when you start cutting. If it's tender, juicy and easy to slice, perfect. But if it feels tough and you can see the muscle fibers, it's gone dry and the result won't be quite as satisfying. Next, plate everything up. The roast pork, the caramelized potatoes, the boiled potatoes and the red cabbage. And top it all off with a generous serving of brown sauce. And there you have it! Flæskesteg, roasted pork belly with caramelized potatoes, boiled potatoes and red cabbage. Traditionally, it's also served with salted crisps that you dip in the brown sauce, but we forgot to pick those up at the store, so you'll just have to imagine that part.